What is up, everybody? My name is Justin. This is Forever Self-Employed, Chris's Striping Guys channel, and Quote IQ. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a breakdown of a $15,000 parking lot striping job. Should get pretty interesting. I'm going to have Chris here with me. I'm going to ask him some good questions about this job and everything else. But Chris, how's it going, man?
Man, it's going good, Justin. Everything's good. We're coming to the end of the season. Got a few more weeks left before the colder weather starts coming in. So we're still busy, but we're looking forward to starting next year off.
Absolutely. Chris is actually wrapping up his in-person training for the year. If anybody was interested in trying to get in towards the end, there's a little bit of time. We actually got some people that were going to be coming out next week. But if you guys are interested in in-person training, there'll be a link for it in the comment section description. You guys can message Chris directly. Or if you just want to get the How to Stripe course, that'll be linked down below as well. Everything you need to know about how to start your parking lot striping business, from equipment to pricing to how to do the job and everything else in between. Wouldn't you say so, Chris?
100%. It's a great course, and we released it. It's almost been a year since we released it, and I was watching one of Mike's videos the other day, and he was talking about how to stripe in it, and somebody left a comment and said they grabbed the course. They've already made 24,000. We get testimonials left and right of people who are experiencing success with not only the How to Stripe course, but the in-person training as well. And if I could say one thing, think about it from this perspective. People go into debt. They go and get a college degree with student loan debt that takes them 20 years to pay off. They're comfortable doing that. People tell them that's okay. But when it comes to investing in themselves as it pertains to education, to get a skill set that is monetizable, you could make multiple six figures with this skill set, but it's a little bit of an investment, and people just they're uncomfortable with it. They're not sure about it. They don't know. And yeah, for 100% sure. So if you're looking to get some in-person training, check out that material that Justin referenced.
Yeah, and then obviously the How to Stripe course down below. I mean, striping is one of the best businesses to get into from the perspective of every parking lot has to maintain a certain level year-round. The fact that you can't drive anywhere or park anywhere without having parking lines, and everywhere needs to be striped. I would also say that there's a lot of striping companies that are do it the lazy way. There's not a lot of competition, and they clean up a lot of the business. And that's why whenever we teach the stuff that we teach within How to Stripe, guys have tremendous amount of success very quickly, and it's really good. So yes, we're going to be talking about a $15,000 job in today's video. I want to give a couple quick shout outs to people who are hanging out with us live. We got Payne's Pressure Washing in the house. Pressure washing, by the way, parking lot striping is a great add-on service. Any commercial property has lines, and they most likely need to be striped. We got Bin Beans. Where are y'all doing the training for the in-person training? Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
right,
yeah, Ben. What we do is we get people to come to us. I have to line out the jobs on the schedule, and then what I do for the in-person training is I line up jobs on the schedule, and then right after the people come, I mean, immediately after they get off the plane, as soon as we touch the job site, I put the machine in their hand and I let them start making mistakes. That's the best way to learn. You learn by making mistakes on someone else's job site. That way, when you get to your job, you already know the systems and processes that it takes to clean up the mistake. And that's what we do. They come to me, and then I schedule the jobs, put them on the job site, and then they get the hands-on training they need in order to go start their business.
Right. And we actually give, multiple different scenarios. You guys are actually going to see in the footage that we're going to watch today, which was the UPS job that we're talking about. There was actually people doing in-person training. And so you guys are going to see Chris working with those people. So it's going to be pretty good. House of Pickle says, "Hey, big head." I don't know if she's talking to me or you, Chris, but either way. So Perry Burke, send me the information. Thank you, Las Vegas. Perry, it's going to be in the comment section description. One of the things that we found, and one of the things you'll find with your customers, like the more willing they are to provide information and actually seek you out, the more a better customer that you're going to have to deal with. Okay, so we don't send anybody information. If you're interested, it's going to be in the comment section description. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So Chris, with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the video. I'm going to do a screen share here so we can go ahead and take a look at the job and kind of break it down for the people out there. So first and foremost, Chris, tell us what we're striping. Just give us a breakdown. What does this look like?
Is it Okay, I can see it now. This is a facility center for one of our customers. We were doing the south side portion of the property. This is a massive property, absolutely huge. Tons of striping, tons of stenciling all around the property. This just happens to be the south side of the property, but there is docks all the way around the building where semi trucks park. And then what they had us do is just restripe the lines. They wanted them extended to be 53 foot from the building. That way, when the trailers went in there to dock, as you can see in the upper corner of the building, that way, whenever the trailers went in there, and then they were able to see the stenciling and the dock number behind the trailer without having to have the trailer over it.
Okay, excellent. And so, like, I guess this is pretty typical with these types of jobs. They have huge bays and stuff like that. So, I mean, Chris, I don't know how much information you want to disclose with regards to who this was for or anything like that. You want to keep that pretty much under wraps or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I necessarily, it's super secretive, but it was just, this is our biggest customer and we service them frequently. So nothing too special. It's just for our biggest customer. It's a facility for a large trucking company, and they keep us busy for sure.
Excellent, excellent. So, Chris, let's kind of get into how we land monster jobs. I mean, within anybody's description of a monster job, I think $15,000 may not be monster, but this is a large size job. So, in your personal opinion, how do we go about kind of getting in front of the right people and doing the right things in order to land something like this?
Well, there is a specific systematic approach that you have to take. Typically, when you're dealing with smaller customers, $1,000, $2,000 jobs, really you're just touching the property, you're sending a quote, and then you're remaining in the prospect's eyes until they make a decision to either pursue your quote or to go with somebody else. With larger ticket items, you have to be more systematic in your approach. You have to understand that they could go with someone else. You don't want to be so high to where they go with someone else, but you don't want to be so low to where you miss out on an opportunity to make a substantial amount of money. When you're dealing with larger companies are more interested in a legitimate solution than saving money. The wonderful thing about these companies is that they have a budget allocated for projects just like this. And it's funny how we got this job in the first place. I got this job from a service channel company, and I got called out there to do some fire lane striping for an employee parking lot. They just wanted 4 or 5 little fire lane striping stencils on the property. And I told them, just looking at the property, that they had a more significant issue than just little stencils. The asphalt was deteriorated. The signs were not at the proper height. All this information that we teach in the How to Stripe course, I used that information that I teach in that course to position myself higher in their mind. And then as a result of doing that, I was talking to the decision maker who was there on the property that the service channel connected me with. They were so impressed in how I handled the situation. They said, we've got a project on the south side of the property right now that we already have a budget allocated towards, and we want to know if you could just give us a quote for that. And that's how we got this part of the project anyways, because they were so impressed in the selling process, in the communication process, that we got this job, and we still haven't even done the fire lane stenciling that they originally called us out there for.
Right. So one of the biggest things with regards to landing large commercial jobs is being able to create a competitive advantage for yourself. And that's one of the ways that Chris does it, by being more informed than his competition. And so when you have the ability to speak to certain codes, I mean, Chris, you've done this time and time again, like going out there, making them aware of all the different things that they need to have on the property and what kind of code standard those need to be up to. So maybe you kind of speak to that a little bit, like obviously it gives you a competitive advantage, but can you give us a couple of other instances where you've been able to kind of pull out what you know and take advantage of it?
Yeah, 100%. What I do is I try to focus on what other people are not doing and then leverage that opportunity in order to position myself higher. Everybody's going to send a quote. Everybody's going to send a quote. And if they don't have enough lead flow coming in, they're going to be too desperate. But one of the wonderful things about us is I have a substantial amount of lead flow coming in, which I'm very thankful for. The Lord has blessed us tremendously. Since I have that lead flow coming in, it allows me to sell from such a position where I'm not desperate. And if you're desperate and you're trying to sell jobs to large ticket customers, they're going to be able to tell that you're desperate. You never want to appear desperate when you're selling jobs like this to your customers, because they're going to be able to tell that. Now, in regards to how I position myself, having a proper understanding of code violations, a large portion of our projects come from code violations. If you do not have the proper knowledge as it pertains to code violations, then you're limiting yourself by not utilizing the information as it pertains to code violations. When you leverage code violations, what that does is it allows you to position yourself higher in the prospective client's mind, because you're not just some guy in a truck without insurance, no good equipment or anything like that, who's just sending off a quote. The difference between me and someone else is I'm going to position myself as a subject matter expert. That way, whenever I touch their property, they can be sure that Chris knows what he's doing. He's offering a solution and he's going to satisfy my needs. That way, I won't have to worry when he gets done with that project. And that's what I tell our coaching clients all the time. You have to be able to position yourself a lot higher than the people that you're competing against. And when you do that, you will see a maximum ROI in your invested time and as well as your profitability.
You also build trust with the customer. They're going to trust you more if you're somebody who actually knows what you're talking about. So I think a lot of times, not you guys, but just people try to get into these businesses. They don't do their homework. They don't study. They don't know the codes. They don't know all the different rules and things they need to do. They're like, oh, we'll just do it on a whim. I mean, it might work for some, but you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage when it comes to landing some of these bigger jobs. So first and foremost is getting in front of the right people, getting in front of where they're looking. And then secondly, knowing the right things to say whenever, you're walking the property. And, in the How to Stripe course, Chris actually goes over a bunch of different things with regards to how he packages the quote, how he sends it in, and how he gives himself an even bigger competitive advantage. But Chris, with regards to pricing, like you mentioned, the $1,500, $2,000 jobs, those are a little bit more typical, I'd say, rather than, 15,000. But what are the pros and cons to, a 15K job versus 2K? You know what I mean? Is there like downside to actually doing bigger jobs like this?
Not necessarily, because with a lower ticket job, it's more of a mobilization cost, right? Because I have to allocate financial resources to paying people. I've got several people that work with me, and I've got to make sure that they're paid as well. Right there, you see my dad striping this job, doing all the stenciling. But on a smaller job, that's more of a mobilization charge. With a large project like this, we might be at a linear foot rate and price per stencil. But with a smaller job, we're going to be at a mobilization cost, meaning that it might take us an hour to do it, but to pull the trailer out, I've got to make $1,000. And you think about that from a business perspective. If it takes us a couple hours to do a job, I've got to make sure that the people that are working for me are paid a good rate. That way I can retain them as an employee. You don't want to pay people cheap and then just sit on a huge pile of money and not compensate them properly. So I've got to pay people. And then with a job, it could take 2.5 gallons of paint, but you can't buy it in 2.5 gallons of paint. You got to buy it in bulk. It might cost me $100 to do the job with supply cost. Then it might cost me $120 to do it with labor, depending upon how long it takes. And then if we do 3 jobs in a full day, I got to pay 8 hours. And then so with smaller jobs, you want to be at a mobilization rate. My target, I got to make $1,000 whenever I'm pulling the trailer out, because by the time I pay supplies, employees, taxes, and I walk away from the job, it could be $400 or $500. that's why it's important to have mobilization costs with smaller projects. With this job, though, it's super funny because I know a lot of people in the industry, and they told me that I might have charged a little bit higher than they would have, meaning they would have been a little bit cheaper. And my response to that is, well, why would I want to offer my customers a cheap solution? Nobody likes cheap stuff. I mean, if I gave you an option to buy a brand new pair of shoes, and then, or you could pick the same pair of shoes that have 2 years of wear and tear on them, obviously you're going to pick the new pair of shoes. So it's all a matter of perspective. Why would I offer my customers less of a solution in order to make more money or less money in a shorter or longer period of time? The price was what it was. Originally, whenever I was going through the service channel company, I was like at $1.25 a foot, because I knew that the service channel company was going to subcontract me and make a substantial amount of money off of my pricing. Therefore, when I was working through the service channel company, I was like 40 cents more. Then they were so happy with how I dealt with the situation, they cut the service channel company out, gave me a direct contract, and I dropped my price 40 cents, was still at 80 cents, which for a large project, that is amazing. And I still made a significant amount of money. The only downside was we had to make 3 mobilizations. Other than that, it took us 3 8-hour work days to finish it. And because we can only work on it one phase at a time, I just did it every other Saturday. Whenever I got a spare day, I just went and worked on it for that day. We got it done. And yeah.
Excellent. So essentially, when you're doing the smaller jobs, you want to make sure you have a minimum charge. I think that was one of your biggest points with that one, Chris. And then obviously the bigger jobs come with some more responsibility because you're having to manage crews. You're going to have people out there. You have to pay more, to those people. And then you got to have all the supplies ready. So pros and cons on each side. My next question is, a lot of people might watch this video and they might say, oh, I want to start a parking lot striping business because I want to go out there and do a $15,000 job. Well, let's kind of talk about where you need to be with regards to like equipment and experience and all these different things in order to go out and actually accomplish a job like this. You know what I mean, Chris?
Yeah, 100%. I think, unfortunately, people have unrealistic expectations, because I remember before I got started, I would see videos just like the one we're doing right now. And, I would think there's no way, people can't do that. It's impossible. And I want to say that it is most definitely possible. But you have to have a realistic expectation. This isn't our first job. So many people reach out to me and they're trying to talk to me about the job. And they're like, hey, Chris, I got this opportunity to do this Walmart. And my first question is, okay, how many machines do you have? How many people are working for you? How long have you been doing it? And they're like, oh, well, this is just my second bid and I haven't even done a job yet. If you haven't done a job yet, don't take on enormous responsibility if you're not able to successfully complete the job you're trying to charge for. Don't assume so much responsibility if you've never even done a parking lot before. Get a couple of jobs under your belt. They could be little ones. They could be medium ones. But make sure you get a couple jobs under your belt first. And then after you do that, you're able to have the experience you need. And then it's just replicating that process from there. Once you have an understanding of how to stripe, how to stencil, how to direct a crew, right? Because on this job, there's 4 guys out here. And, you have to understand how to direct a crew. Your crew needs to understand, one person's popping chalk line, the other person's cleaning, the other person's striping, one person's doing line, the other person's stenciling. There's a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration. How to lead a crew is probably one of the most important things when you're on jobs like this, because if you're not able to successfully lead a crew in the most profitable way, you're going to end up wasting more money than you would have if you would have just taken the time, learn the trade, learn how to do the proper marketing and all of the things that come with building the business on the back end. That way, when you get to larger projects, you know what you're doing.
Exactly, and I think a place where a lot of people lose a bunch of time is, not being organized. So, and the thing is we all say time is money, and the more time that you're spending on these jobs, the more money that you're ultimately putting out. Chris, you can see some trainees here, guys that were doing some in-person training, spraying. What do you think some of the biggest takeaways that they got being on the job site with you? You know what I mean, and seeing how you operate.
Yeah, during this project, we had, I think, 3 people come out for in-person training. This was our first trainee, and he's already crushing it. He's quit his full-time job. He's already striping full-time, and I think we did this job 3 months ago. But he's doing really, really good. And I think that it's beneficial for the trainees because they learn how to make mistakes. When you've never done this before and you spill a 5-gallon bucket of paint, or you get overspray, or you don't pull the trigger mechanism right on time, you make a mistake, any kind of mistake, whatever the case may be. And then if you don't have a proper understanding of how to rectify the mistake, you lose your composure. It's like being in a football game. I don't know if you've ever played football or any kind of sports, but once you throw an interception, then your composure goes down. You start getting rattled. You're getting sacked, and the O-line's not performing. I mean, once you make a mistake, it's a snowball effect. That's why it's good to come out for the in-person training, because you get the experience you need to go and build a business. Every single person who has taken this seriously and come and done the in-person training, they have left and they've started a business, and a lot of these guys are already full-time.
So, Chris, I want to ask you a question with regards to the pricing. So, obviously, within the How to Stripe course, we go over pricing. You get a pricing guide, pricing cheat sheet. That way you can take it on site with you, list everything out. How cut and dry is the pricing on a job like this? I mean, like, as we can see here, we got our lines, we have the boxes, we have, multiple boxes, the stenciling that goes within them. So is it just as cut and dry as saying, like, okay, what's the linear footage on the lines? How many boxes? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, right? You don't want to overcomplicate the process, but think about it in terms of, from the customer, it's perception. If you're the reason why we're able to charge what we charge is because we are the highest rated company in the state. When somebody looks at us, we're not a guy who's starting this up, that doesn't have a website, that doesn't have any reviews, that doesn't have a social media presence, that doesn't have, like, I have put so much work on the back end of building what we have today that it has yielded an amazing ROI. Now, if you're just starting out and you're not ranked the highest, you're not going to be able to charge whatever you want, because they're going to look at you and compare you with other companies that have been in business for longer, that are better, that are cheaper, that have more of a online presence. And the reason why they even picked us to begin with to come out to the property was because we were ranked the highest. That is why I tell people all the time in these videos, you have to put the work in order to have the social proof to leverage that to get more customers. Now, what does that have to do with pricing? You might be asking. It has everything to do with pricing. If you're the highest rated company and you're giving a price, then that solidifies it in itself. The price is in the value. Okay, so if you don't have that much of a reputation, you're not ranked the highest, you're going to have to be cheaper. You're going to have to be cheaper, especially if you don't have as much leads coming in. You're going to have to charge less in order to compensate for your lack of lead source that's coming in, because you're going to have to make it up in volume over time. Whereas I can charge whatever I want because we're ranked the highest. And even if there is a price rebuttal, which in this case there was, they asked if I would be willing to drop my price in order to provide a maintenance solution over long term. Then I thought, okay, let me put it in this perspective. If I do this job one time, I can charge this price, but they're never going to call me again. And if they never call me again, I might make $20,000. I think the original ticket price was like, it was like $21,000. they would have paid that $21,000. But once they cut out the service channel company, they asked me, hey, would you be willing to come down on your price to offer more of a maintenance solution, meaning, i.e., reoccurring work? So I thought, well, of course. Yeah, I'll drop my price. I'll drop my price. I said, yeah, I'll drop it. I'll drop it $6,000. And, he was like, well, I still want you to make money too. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. But I'd rather establish a relationship with you and work for you in the long term than I would just to stripe it one time and make a whole bunch of money. That's exactly what I did. I dropped the price, still made a tremendous amount of money. And guess what? Now they're our biggest customer. We are on a maintenance plan for them, meaning that we're keeping the entire property good. And there's more properties all around the state that they're going to give us. I think they're just waiting for budget allocations for next year. But yeah, when you're first starting out, you're not going to be able to charge as much as other companies will. That's why in the How to Stripe course, we gave you a pricing guide. That pricing guide, see, I know people that do striping all over the nation, and I have had conversations about pricing with everybody. And I in the How to Stripe course with the pricing guide, you get a price range spectrum. You get a lower end spectrum and a higher end spectrum, meaning that if you want to be cheap, you can go through this. If you want to be mid-range, just pick what you want to charge in between the two spectrums. That's why How to Stripe is so valuable, because it gives you a pricing range for striping, arrows, wheel stops, stuff like that. And that way you don't have to spend the time trying to figure it out. You just have access to that information that other people are already using in their business to make money.
Right. So if you guys are interested, it'll be linked in the comment section description. Couple different questions for you, Chris. So I guess pricing is always a moving target. One of the biggest things with pricing, as Chris mentioned, is there's a lot of factors to take into consideration, not just, a number on a page, but where you're located, what your lead flow is, how big of a company you are, how established your company is, how much work you currently have. All these different factors always go into pricing. One quick question, Chris, with regards to this job: how hard was it for you guys to paint over all these divots and stuff that you see within this concrete?
Man, it wasn't that hard, but when the surface of the ground deviates from its regular, it will distort the fan pattern to some degree, but it wasn't too bad. It's just like you're seeing them right now. You have to go very slow. If you're going over an uneven surface, you have to go over it very slow. And so it wasn't too difficult, but it is definitely something that you need to keep into consideration, because if this asphalt parking lot is completely destroyed and it's so bumpy to where the lines are totally wavy, then you're going to have to stencil it, and there's a larger issue at hand because they need to fix their asphalt. But we've got so much work that we're going to be doing for these people. I mean, we've got one quote for their employee parking that's just waiting to get approved. That is an absolute monster of a job. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, beautiful. I was just curious if obviously this is what makes the in-person training invaluable. You don't have to go and do your first job and have this bumpy surface to, stripe on. And you guys can't see it here because like Chris is actually doing a really good job, and the guy that he's coaching is doing a really good job as well. But striping over these surfaces, man, all it takes is one little bounce and then your paint's all over the place and the line looks jagged and then you're having to fix it. And it's just, anyway, so this is a lot harder than I think what it's being portrayed as in the video. I want to go back to this, Chris, for a second, just so we can give a time frame. So towards the end here, we got a really good idea for what the scope of this particular portion of the job looked like. How long did this take, just for reference, for anybody wondering?
It took 3 Saturdays because we had to do it in phases, because it's a large dock facility. It's the biggest facility in the state. You see all the diesel trucks up there alongside the north part of the screen at the very top.
Yeah.
That means, when they move those trucks, they got to put them somewhere, but they got to keep the dock open. They had to fit them in other areas. I was limited. I mean, we could only do it on Saturdays, and then, you want the paint to cure, so you don't want to stripe it and then let them immediately come back and park over it. because it's going to retain too much tire tracks. Unfortunately, we could only work on one phase at a time. And the phases took us, it might not have taken exactly 8 hours, but from the process of loading up the trailer, getting to the job, setting the equipment up, striping, layouts, cleaning it, all that stuff, I'd say by the time we pulled back into the driveway, it was a full day. It took us about 24 hours, and we made like $15,000.
So I
24
would say
hours.
that this is another downside, though, to doing these type of jobs is just the logistics side of things. And I just want to make sure we paint a clear picture for anybody out there that's like thinking about coming into something like this. And it's like, oh man, this is super easy. I get out here with the machine, spray some lines, make a bunch of money. But the communication that had to go in, the planning that had to go in, and everything else in order to get something like this accomplished. I mean, I could imagine, Chris, that it was, it was probably a lot. Wouldn't you say so?
Oh yeah, I mean it was a substantial job. I mean, we had to get areas moved. We had to, I mean, they were trying to unload more trucks while we were in the middle of painting it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration: scheduling, mobilization, staying in contact with people, weather, stuff like that. And yeah, you'll build up to that point. I mean, the more and more jobs you do, the more comfortable you're going to be with taking on the responsibility of larger projects. And you lose the nervousness. You get to a point where you're not scared anymore to take on big projects, because you're essentially replicating the same exact thing, but you're just doing it on a larger scale. Luckily, this was a restripe, wasn't new layout, but even if it was a new layout, we would just use the same exact information that we teach in the How to Stripe course. It was 90-degree parking up there, which we teach how to lay out 90-degree parking. And then it's angled parking, which we also teach how to lay out 45, 60, and 75-degree angled parking in that How to Stripe course. And you get a layout diagram. So from just a restripe perspective, super easy. Even if it was a new layout perspective, it would have been easy as well. It's just replicating the same thing over time. Start with smaller jobs. You will progress into larger ones, but you have to have the sustainable skill set developed first. And then once you have that skill set, you just replicate the process from there.
Absolutely. Okay, so we had the logistics on them moving things. We obviously had to do this over multiple Saturdays. I mean, you mentioned another thing here, Chris, and that was they couldn't put the trucks on these lines too soon. Was that an issue that you kind of ran into during this project?
Well, man, I'll tell you what, we ran into a monster issue. The specification requirements for the paint had to meet Aexcel M-248. That is a specific paint spec. And when I sent the first quote, the paint price was super high, and they were telling me that they were able to get paint for a cheaper price than I did. And I said, well, I'm not buying from my regular distributor. And the reason why the paint price is so high is because it's dry alkyd. It's a specific kind of paint designated for high traffic durability. And so ultimately what happened, I'll tell you this, if you're watching this video and you're still locked in and you're paying attention, if you ever get on a job site that requires a certain specification paint requirements, under any circumstances, never deviate from that. Because they asked me if I could use a cheaper paint, and I told them yes. And I got solvent-borne paint from another company that was not AASHTO M-248. It did not meet that specification. And I striped that job. And I got a call back from him 2 days later after we finished phase one. And he asked me, he said, hey, why is this faded already? And I said, why is it faded? And even though they left the trucks off for a few hours, the paint, since it did not meet spec, was retaining tire tracks too heavily. Well, from a business perspective and a mobilization perspective, you've got thousands of dollars invested in paint. You've got people that you're paying to do the job. You paid for the stencils. You paid for the paint. You paid to mobilize the crews. And now they call you back and they say, hey, this paint isn't working. And I went out there and I told him, I said, well, we didn't use the paint that was required in the spec. I used a different paint to be cheaper on the price. Well, ultimately, we had to rectify something. You know, I asked a couple of people what they would do, and they said, oh no, they wanted to pick a different kind of paint, so I just let them do it. And you know, and of course there are people that don't run companies, so they don't have an understanding of customer service. And I thought, man, I got to do whatever I can to make this right, because this is such a big ticket customer. I can't, you know, do I want to lose 100,000, or do I want to pay and sacrifice the extra paint? Do I want to pay and get that paint? That way I could retry it and restripe it and see if it changed. You know, do I want to restripe it with the paint that meets the spec, or do I want to tell them, no, this is the paint you wanted, not going to do it, and then miss out on any work potentially in the future? So what I did is I restriped the first phase that you seen earlier in the video. I restriped that with the spec that met the specifications. And it most definitely, I can see why we were supposed to use that paint, without question. However, though, it did rain. And then when it rained for a couple days, it cleaned off the lines because it was retaining tire tracks. When the rain hit the lines, it washed them off and made them look clean again. So I told him, hey, we restriped phase 1. The rain hit the ground. These lines look good now. It's just tire tracks. It's not faded. And then after that, he said, okay, great. We're super satisfied. I sent him the bill, and then we got paid. This is the second job that we did for them. The first one was a crosswalk for about $1,800. So we did that, got the job done, got paid, and then yeah, we're just waiting to get more work from them, and there's tons of work left still to do.
So I think the biggest thing is us just highlighting the fact that like there are tons of little things that go into, you know, doing this kind of work and getting a job of this size. So I think that's beautiful, Chris. Like obviously, you know, having to get the right paint, you had to redo a whole section, is what you said, right? Because it was with the wrong paint the first time.
Yeah, it was with the wrong paint the first time, and you know, I wanted to do whatever I can to make it right. I mean, I want to make sure my customers are satisfied no matter what. I mean, in every area, because customers are how we get paid, and I don't want to risk one customer having a bad experience. If one customer, now I'm not talking about just working for free, because a lot of people will want you to work for free, and I'm not just going to sit around and just work for free for unthankful customers who just want things for free all the time. But this customer was, you know, they were cool. You know, they were a good customer. They understood about the, you know, about the paint problem. I explained it to them and said, hey, we're going to do whatever we can to make this right and to satisfy you, because a core value in our company is essentially loving others as we love ourselves. And if I love myself enough to make sure that my needs are met, then I should love my customers enough to make sure that their needs are met. And that's one of the core values that we have in our company, is treating our customers like we want to be treated, essentially loving our neighbor as ourselves. And I think that when you really are dedicated, because there's a lot more to it, right? Like if you don't have a heart for customer service and you just want to make money, you're probably not going to be good at it. But if you have a heart for customer service, you want to provide a legitimate solution, you want to be their go-to company to satisfy their needs, then they're going to remember the experiences that they had with you. If you gave them a negative experience and there was a misunderstanding, and you know, you just got all upset over losing $1,000, well, then obviously they're going to remember that whenever they go to think about getting a service in the future. They're going to remember, oh, you know, we need to get this done, but we really don't want to fool with that guy because last time he was really rude. And ultimately, I should have told him from the beginning, we've got to use this paint. I know it's a lot higher, but there's a reason why this specification of the paint is required. And now that was just a lesson that we learned. And now we've learned that lesson. And so next time we come up with any project for this customer in the future, we're going to use the dry alkyd paint. And, you know, you live and you only learn by making mistakes. And one of the ways you learn is by making mistakes. Once you make those mistakes, you learn not to do it again. And so ultimately, all this stuff works together in tandem: customer service, operational aspects, and every interwoven part that works together to ensure that a successful project completion happens is ultimately your responsibility as a business owner.
Absolutely. So there's give and take, and that's the biggest thing that I wanted to highlight here is it's not just one-sided. It's not just show up, do the job, get paid. Especially on these bigger projects, Chris needed to sacrifice in some areas in order to establish that relationship and show that he's the right person to be working with this company. So I think that's brilliant, Chris. I think a lot of guys can take a lot away from understanding that, because some of these situations were less than beneficial for you, like the fact that you had to restripe an area, the fact you had to work through the paint, the fact that you had to work through, them moving equipment and everything else, and the tire marks. It was a lot. So anyway, just wanted to make sure we highlighted that. Chris, it looks like a mess up on the front on this line right here. Is this something you had to correct? And is this anything we could kind of speak to, something we need to look out for, you know what I mean, on a parking lot striping job?
Yeah, it was just the trainee didn't position the gun properly on the line, and he made a mistake, and I just corrected it. And I think at the end of this video, I don't know, it might not be in the video, but we just kind of blacked it out with some black striping paint. But like I was saying, y'all, when people come for in-person training, I let them make mistakes. I don't, because they're paying good money to learn the trade. I don't spend, 4 hours talking to them about it. They can watch my YouTube videos for all that stuff. They're paying for extensive hands-on training in the field. That way they could develop the skill set that's needed in order to go and replicate the process to make money. That's why when they first touch down, I literally give them the machine and say, here you go. And then I coach them along as they make mistakes.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons why that training is so beneficial. Okay, Chris, so we kind of went through a bunch of different things. What was unexpected, what didn't go right about this job. As far as payment goes, I mean, just so we can have some clarification towards that, like how many weeks did it take to do the job for a particular section? And then how long after did you get paid? Just so we can have some clarification.
Well, as a direct vendor, the company itself has a 90-day wait period. And this is important too. I mean, so you're paying for paint, supplies, labor, for stencils, everything, mobilization charges. And then, with being a direct vendor for them, you have to wait 90 days. Now we're a direct vendor, so that whatever projects I do in the future, I'm going to have to wait 90 days. But this one was done through the subcontractor who had already assumed the responsibility for the project. Because remember, that I mentioned earlier in the video that they already had a budget allocated towards fixing this. This was already under contract. They just hadn't picked a striping company yet. But any work that we do for them in the future, since we're a direct vendor now, we got to wait 90 days. Put that in perspective. If you guys are thinking about starting this up as a business and you're just doing this as a part-time thing, or, I get so many questions from guys. They're like, Chris, man, I'm going to go full-time, man. It's ready to go full-time in this thing. When it costs you $4,000, if you're going to have to eat $4,000 and you're not going to get paid for 30, 60, 90 days, and you're going to have to sit on that supply cost, and you're going to have to pay that to accomplish the job. Think about that, because some people are in a position where if they do a job for somebody and they don't get that money right away, they're going to be in a position of desperation. Fortunately, the Lord is good to us, and he sustains our every need, and he's been a tremendous blessing to us since we started thus far, and he's never let me go without. So even though we might have to wait longer for some customers, that's why I manage our money like I do. I don't spend irresponsibly, just because I might have a certain amount of money in my bank account. I don't just look for reasons to spend. And I think that is a big mistake as it pertains to payment. Is some people just can't manage their finances in general. And if you can't manage your finances with a full-time job, then you're not going to be able to manage your finances in a business, because You have to correct the patterns. And if you're not able to save money working a full-time job, you're not going to be able to save money with a business when you're generating more income, because you've never fixed the habits that cause you to spend money in the first place. So if you already have negative patterns in your personal life with your income, and you blow your money on whatever it is that you spend, you're going to just do that to a greater degree the more money you make. That way, or with that being said, if you're going to go 60 days without getting paid, you need to make sure that you have money set aside to pay all your labor, because I can wait 30, 60, 90 days to get paid. The people who are working for me, they can't just go, oh, I'll wait, 60 days for when Chris gets paid. I've got to pay them now. I have to pay them to do the job. And then guess what? This isn't the only job that we do. I got work tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and they got to keep getting paid while I'm still waiting. You think about that for a second. I think I had to wait I waited 45 days for this job. And then we did another job for them that I had to wait 90 days for, small little crosswalk. But while I'm waiting to get paid, I've still got to make sure that I'm compensating the people that work for me. I can't just tell them, well, I got to wait till I get paid. And that's the difference between running a business and a company, and then just, having a side hustle where your friend works for you and you could just tell them, oh, it'll be fine. I can just pay you whenever I get paid and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't work like that. When you have people that work for you, they depend upon you, and they have bills they have to pay. So I have to make sure that they're compensated. My needs are met. I'm saving money. I'm keeping our company running, and also trying to generate a profit at the same time. There's a lot of stuff that goes into things that people don't even see. That's why you have to be organized. Right now, we have a coaching group where I've got my guys, they got 24/7 access to me. They can call me at any time, about quoting, scheduling, all of the multifaceted things that come with running their company. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about in our next session, is making sure that you're running a system that keeps track of your receipts, that keeps track of your expenses, your mileage, all that stuff you have to take into consideration, because small businesses fail, but a lot of them fail by lack of organizations and organizational skills, and then getting paid. So if you can't afford to wait 60 days to get paid on a project, you probably shouldn't assume the responsibility of that project if you don't have enough money in your bank account to pay the people that are working for you, covering your operational cost, and then generating a profit as well. There's so much that is involved when it comes to doing jobs like this. It's not just, oh, I got a big job and, I'm going to do this job and we're going to make a bunch of money. And then no. It's going to cost you to do it first. And then after it costs you, you're going to have to wait to get paid as well. There's a lot that goes into jobs like this that, on 8-minute YouTube videos, you're not able to really cover. That's the reason why we do these lives, to give you guys a better understanding of how this really works in the operational aspect that's involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, incredibly important. So, as Chris mentioned, a lot of things went into making this one happen. I do want to mention that you're paid in direct proportion to the amount of value that you can provide. And so it's not just the fact that this job is giant, it's the fact that all the other hurdles that Chris had to jump through. So, of course, it's going to pay more because Chris has to be more organized. He has to take more time out to plan things and coordinate things with the proper people. So a couple things that I wanted to mention there. There was one other thing I wanted to mention, Chris. Oh, just the fact that what Chris was talking about, being out all this money on labor, on material, on all these things, not having to pay out for 90 days. Also having to schedule jobs that way he can get paid in the meantime. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things we don't necessarily think about. But if all Chris did was these giant jobs, there'd be no payouts for months and months and months. And you got to make sure you get the bills paid and everything else. So a lot of different coordination. Chris, anything else we want to mention with regards to, any other aspects of this job?
Yes. I wanted to mention one thing there. We mentioned earlier for the in-person training, there's a form that you guys can fill out, because somebody that was watching the live called me while we're doing the live, in the middle of the live, to talk to me about in-person training. We have a form that is in the comment section in the description that you guys can fill out. And then
It's
when
your
you fill
number
that
right now,
out,
Chris. I don't think the form is in the. I don't think the form is in there right now.
the form is not in there. Okay, we're going to put the form in there because, you know, we're talking about doing in-person training. I'm not sure if someone knew that this was a live or not, but, you know, I got people calling me, leaving me voicemails right in the middle of a live that we're doing. But if you called and left me a voicemail, I am going to get back to you immediately. Just as soon as we get done with the live, I'm going to send you a text message, get on the phone with you, and then we can talk about the in-person training. I just wanted to clarify that. What was the question? Anything else? You said anything else? What?
Yeah, anything else pertaining to this job that we kind of want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just understand that when you're running a business, people depend upon you. Whenever I first got started, there was no pressure. Okay. No pressure whatsoever. It was just, hey, I do a job. I make sure that, you know, this job, it's 8 lines. I can remember whenever I would do a job with 8 lines, and I would be so terrified. Just, I didn't want to mess anything up. I want to make sure I get paid. But the more you grow, the more responsibility you assume. And when people depend on you, that's one of the biggest responsibilities in doing jobs like this. You have to understand that people depend on me now. When I first got started, nobody depended upon me other than my customers. Now, my customers depend upon me. Those that work with me depend upon me. You know, my family depends upon me to supply our needs. And all this is given to us by God. I mean, James says every good gift coming from above, down from the Father of lights. And every good gift that we receive is given of God. I mean, I'm telling y'all, I pray my work in. I pray and ask the Lord to give me work. Therefore, I could take care of my needs and responsibilities. And I like to just say it's all because of just the wonderful skill sets that I have. But man, I do a lot of praying and asking the Lord to bless our work and bless our efforts and help us. And that way we can help other people. So just, that's the biggest key takeaway. When you see videos like this, and unfortunately, most people just click off, you know, because their attention span is so short. You know, they watch 2 minutes of a video, then click off, and then, you know, they don't get the information. I literally made a video about that a couple weeks ago. If you're soft, don't watch it. But if you can take it, go watch that video. But understanding that people depend upon you, that's the biggest key takeaway. You are responsible for ensuring that other people's needs are met. That's the biggest key takeaway when you're doing big jobs like this. And then make sure you have enough money set aside to cover expenses, to cover paying people, to cover paint, supplies, emergencies, so on and so forth. Keep all those things in your mind when you're assuming big projects and responsibilities like this.
Absolutely. They saw 3 trainees in this video, Chris, because obviously this was a big one, and you know a lot of people came and did some in-person training. What do you think their biggest takeaways were? I think I might have asked you this already, but there were some different guys on here. So is the biggest thing just being afraid when you show up, and then you know when you leave, you feel like you got everything under control?
Yeah, well, that's my dad. My dad works for me, but there were 3 other in-person trainees that were on the project. Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the wonderful thing about it is when they come, they're totally brand new. By the time they spend 2 days with me, man, I'm putting them on the machine. They're messing up. I'm making them put their hands in gas to clean it. I mean, you know, they're going through the day-to-day process, the grind of, you know, fixing the problem. And that way, you know, I mean, I've got tons of testimonials that I haven't even put out yet of just, you know, what did you think about the in-person training? And they come not knowing anything. And then they have 2 days of extensive training and mess ups. And then by the time they leave, they have the skill set that they need. Going back to what I said originally in the first part of this video, some of you people out there will go and get a degree that does not promise you a high-paying job, and you'll pay $100,000. You'll be in $100,000 in debt. I have people that call me all the time that are in student loan debt. They've got a college degree. They're still in student loan debt, and they're calling me asking about starting parking lot striping. And then I tell them, yeah, you know, this is going to be the price if you want some extensive training. It's not even that expensive. And they're like, well, man, I don't really know if I could really do that, man. It's, you know, it's kind of, that seems a little high. And it's like, okay, well, you know, all right. So having an understanding of how to do this for a fraction of the price is nothing. I mean, if is it not worth it? Would you not pay a couple $1,000s to pay somebody for a skill set that you could sell one job and make $100,000? I mean, you could sell one asphalt striping job, striping, seal coating, crack filling, make $100,000. Or you could subcontract a paving job and make that as well. One job. This customer next year, I've got one in the works for them. It's $92,000. Just one crack fill, seal coating, parking lot striping job. Just waiting on them to approve it. But what I mean is for the in-person training, people will pay for a college degree for an education that they get that provides no sustainable skill set in the marketplace. And if I tell people, hey, if you sign up for a coaching program, I'll teach you how to make 6 figures and you won't be in debt for the rest of your life. And people trip out about it. They're so blown away about it, and they're scared, and they're like, well, I don't really know if it's going to work, man. And so, they left after I got done with them. They left with a skill set, and now all of my trainees have thriving businesses.
There you go. Wow. That was really good, Chris. So anyway, if you guys are interested, all the links will be down below. And yeah, the best investment you can ever make is an investment in yourself, because it pays dividends. This was an awesome job, Chris. I'm glad we kind of got to dig into the meat and potatoes a little bit, kind of dig in and see what the worst parts were. Like you said, there's going to be some more parts coming, so I can't wait to explore those with you. But for anybody who made it this far in the video, what's the word of the day?
Stripe.
Dude, is that the best you got, Chris? Stripe.
That's the best I got.
The word of the day is going to be stripe. If you made this far in the video, comment down below stripe. I doubt anybody did. I mean, honestly, like you said, people have short attention spans, and I don't know. So yeah, we appreciate you guys for hanging out, though, and checking out the video. Anything else you want to mention, Chris, before we wrap?
Yeah, if you guys are interested in grabbing How to Stripe, it is at a significant discount right now. They're running an amazing discount. I think if you get the whole package without the discount, it's like almost $800. But if you guys click on How to Stripe right now, you're still in here, you've been thinking about it, you haven't went forward yet, you're still undecided, I don't know how long they're going to leave the discount up for, but if you go and grab the entire package in the program right now, there is like $300 off, and instead of $797, it's like $548. That's almost $400 off. And you get 8 hours of training. You get a proven method of how I get customers and what I've done to generate a 6-figure business. And you get a private group of 300 people. That way you have a community of people that you can glean information from, and you get legal documents, the striping contract, all that stuff. But you have to get the entire package to get the entire deal. And right now it's at a super discounted price. And I wish that something like this was available. There were trainings available, but there was nothing in depth that teaches you how to stripe, how to get customers, everything that comes with it, and gives you a private community to help you build and grow your business alongside you. It was not available whenever I got started. There were trainings, but not as extensive as this one. And if you guys have been thinking about it, you really need to decide, move forward today, because there are people who decided not to get the training whenever we released it. And those same people are still hand rolling jobs, handing out business cards, hand rolling jobs. They've done probably as many jobs as you can count on your finger. Whereas people who have taken this training, I've replicated this process, multiple 6-figure earners, and you can be like one of those people today, but you got to get started.
Boom. Okay, sweet, man. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, this is on your channel too, so thanks for having me. And until next time, hustle hard and get that money, baby. Comment down below, stripe and #you're on. But all the links as well down in the comment section. Later, guys. Peace.